Hello, and welcome to ScrapTV, the video forum for the ISRI and Scrap Magazine websites. I'm Ken Kaiser, your ScrapTV host, and today I'm here with Salim Bhabhrawala, the Senior International Trade Specialist with the U.S. Department of Commerce in Washington, D.C. Welcome, Salim.
Well, thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here, Ken. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Today we're going to just talk about a few international trade issues, very important to our scrap recycling audience. Why don't we just start by talking about what key resources the U.S. Department of Commerce offers that might help recyclers build their businesses through trade. Can you talk about that?
Sure. So, a lot of scrap recyclers in the United States are small and medium-sized enterprises, not necessarily giant conglomerate companies. Sure. And so I think the best resource right off the bat for smaller companies to start off with are what we call our U.S. Export Assistance Centers, and our Beltway term for that is a USIAC. Okay. And what these are local offices that try to get in touch with smaller companies within the state, and then try to do market research for them to try to find out what opportunities really best fit those companies. And so we do have our webpage at www.trade.gov, and you can certainly find those resources there, and I think that is the best initial resource we have for scrap companies in terms of trying to find out what is the best and most ideal fit for them. Super. I think beyond that, from a bigger level, we issue every year something called our top markets reports. And everybody knows that the scrap industry is very vertically integrated around the construction and infrastructure and building products industries. And so, basically you want to follow those industries and find out where the most growth is for those. And our top markets reports, which actually cover 10 different product cycles, are available on our webpage as well. And that is a free market research for all U.S. companies to take a look at. And we have numbers and figures from 2014 all the way through projected growth in 2018 for various products and industries, including the plumbing industry, HVAC, and a variety of other industries that are cyclical to the scrap industry.
Super. How about any, you mentioned something in another speech about a NEXT program? Or?
Sure. So all of this is encompassed in something what we call our National Export Initiative NEXT program. And really what it is to try to help U.S. manufacturers export. What we set out to do about 6 years ago was double exports in the United States. And beyond that, what we've also tried to do is try to provide more deliverables and resources for U.S. companies to enable them with the information that they need to be able to export easier through various resources like I mentioned, like the Top Markets Report and our U.S. Export Assistance Centers.
Excellent. So,
the one I think further resource I can mention, if you don't mind, Ken, is we have what we call our Industry Trade Advisory Committees. And these are groups of cleared advisors in various industry sectors. For example, ISRI belongs to the ITAC-9, which is our non-ferrous metals construction and building materials sector advisory committee, and they're able to give, as a stakeholder, basically receive high-level briefings from government officials involved in negotiating and formulating trade policy, and to also be able to brief and give advice to those people. Right. And I think that that is also a very valuable resource to have.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. How about what countries or regions are you seeing around the world that have the greatest potential to be good markets possibly for scrap recyclers?
That's a great question, and I know that a lot of people are very concerned with what's going on in China and sort of the slowdown of the intake of scrap. And so the real underlying question is where do you look to next? And I think through our analysis, we're seeing a lot of growth in the Middle East for construction and infrastructure. Additionally, I think in Southeast Asia, we're seeing a lot of revamping of water infrastructure, where they're taking a lot of old systems out and replacing them with new and more modern systems, and so that's generating a bit of scrap as well.
Very interesting.
So I think that those are two key markets where we should look at.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. Now, U.S. anti-dumping and countervailing duty cases seem to be at an all-time high. I think you said that. What factors are really driving that trend?
Right. We've seen just sort of a global boom in trade, and with all that high competition and products coming out of several marketplaces around the world, we're seeing more trade disputes and more companies in the United States and abroad
Sure.
actually asking for trade remedy from their countries. And so because of that and because of high competition, some low margins, we're seeing a lot more trade cases. And I have to tell you, those cases have almost tripled over the last 10 years. And so we have a limited amount of resources at the U.S. Department of Commerce to address those, but we do the very best we can to make sure that we try to follow the timelines and the guidelines to get those done in an efficient manner.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. The Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, is in the news a lot these days, especially in political circles. But can you talk about what the strengths are of that proposed agreement?
Sure, Ken. And again, I'm not a politician. I serve, as a civil servant, so it's not my right to talk about what's good and what's bad. But I can tell you what I think are two distinct advantages of TPP.
Okay.
First, I think what it does is it codifies a higher level of codes and standards in the 12 marketplaces that are involved.
Okay.
And so, as opposed to there being various codes and standards amongst these marketplaces, what we're asking for is, basically for these markets to reach higher.
Okay.
And to have higher thresholds and to raise, the quality of their products and the quality of their trade remedies. And I think that the other real advantage is the tariff reduction, that it's particularly small and medium-sized enterprises, encounter when they're trying to export. They said, well, gee, I don't know as a small company whether or not I can afford an 8% or an 11% tariff to export to a certain market. And so with TPP, if ever signed, would reduce tariffs for over 18,000 various products coming out of the United States that are made in America. And I think those are two real distinct advantages to TPP.
Absolutely. Well, this is all very great information, Salim. Thank you for the time you spent with us.
Sure, Ken. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. That's all for this edition of Scrap TV. Thank you for joining us, and join us again next time.